you can have all the time in the world, but if you don't have energy inside of the time you have, there's no way
Mm,
you're going to push through. And so this book focuses on those three types of energies, which is visionize, strategize, and mobilize. So there's a visionizer, a strategizer, and a mobilizer role. Helps you really tap into what is the energetic makeup that gets me excited and helps me move through harder things. So I'm a strategizing visionizer. Strategy is my top energetic strength. Like when I'm doing strategy, I have limitless energy. And that powers my vision. If I don't feel like I can get a result, I'm like, no thanks, don't want to work on it.
well, hello there, and welcome to this episode of The Terri Cole Show. Have you ever wondered how to hire the right people to do the right things in your life? Whether you are a business owner, an entrepreneur, but how to actually hire the right people? Well, if you're in your mind, you just said yes, then you're going to love the interview that I just did with a friend of mine. Jen Kem is her name, and she has a book out right now called Unicorn Team, the 9 leadership types you need to launch your big ideas with speed and success. She's really a top brand strategist, and she was named that from Forbes, actually, but she specializes in launching innovative ideas with high-performing teams, basically. So I met her in person not that long ago because she invited me to be a guest in her mastermind in New York City as they were gathering, which was actually super wonderful. And she has an innovation model that she's created that's been used by the Oprah Winfrey Network, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Oracle. I mean, tons of keynote speakers and New York Times bestselling authors. So I think you guys are really going to like the conversation around Unicorn Team because it's really her talking about this innovative playbook on how to build the most collaborative, harmonious, and motivated team to achieve extraordinary results. And who the heck doesn't want that? So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this interview with Jen Kem as much as I enjoyed interviewing her. I'm super excited to welcome my newish friend, Jen Kem, to the Terri Cole Show. Welcome, Jen.
Super excited to be here, Terry.
Super excited to have you here. Last time I saw you, we were in New York, and I was guesting in your mastermind, and we had so much fun and such a great conversation that I'm really looking forward to diving into. And we talked a little bit about this in the mastermind as well. But you just had a brand new book come out less than 2 weeks ago on February 4th called Unicorn Team, the 9 leadership types you need to launch your big ideas with speed and success. So before we get into that, because who doesn't want a unicorn team? I mean, everybody does. I want to talk a little bit about how you ended up here. Like what brought you to this? Tell us a little bit about your sort of origin story, if you would.
Well, Terry, since you listen to people for a living as well, it's always a long, winding yarn. But I guess the big blocks or chunks of my life that brought me to this point are I grew up in a tiny little plantation town in the rural part of Hawaii. And I used to think when I was a little girl and ask God a lot, like, why did you drop me off here? Why are my alien parents having me here? Because I was this big thinker. And at the time, I wouldn't have called myself a big thinker. But looking back at who I was growing up, I always questioned everything. I grew up in a very traditional Filipino household, where, compliance was really appreciated. And, and,
Mm-hmm.
just staying low, not being too loud,
Mm.
definitely not questioning a lot. But I just wanted to know everything. So just to give everyone a little taste of who I am, Jen Kem at 9 was the girl in Catholic school who let everyone know in my 4th grade Catholic school girls class that how babies were made because I had found out at the library. I was that kind of girl who like ruined every parent's lives in 3rd and 4th grade, and who my mom would say, "I'm so sorry, my daughter is just so curious, and she loves books." And I would
Mm-hmm.
just read anything I could get my hands on. And we only had this tiny little rural library. So I had finished, Beverly Cleary and Judy Blume and all the kids' books. And I had moved over to the adult section. And so I discovered The Joy of Sex on a top shelf. And that's, again, in a nutshell, that's kind of who I was as a kid. You know, So fast forward, I'm very grateful because although my mother and my grandmother, who were the matriarchs of our family, and I really grew up around, these two very strong, but played both roles as women that a lot of us women play, right? It's kind of like they both had jobs. They both also had to take care of the home, came home to cook, the ones to pick us up. I mean, I would look at them and go, how the heck are you doing all of this? And my mother
Mm,
used to say, Jenny, when you get older, you need to understand, that's what our job is, unfortunately. Like you seem like an ambitious little girl, but just know that a man is always going to still want you to cook, clean, and bear children for him. And it was such a confusing
mm,
communication because I was like,
mhm,
wait, how the hell are we supposed to do all of that? Like, and I think my mom's answer was, we're doing it, so you can do it too.
mhm,
And I am grateful because my grandmother, who didn't really understand me because she only had a fourth grade education, she was an immigrant from the Philippines. But every
mm,
morning she would have Lipton hot tea, peanut butter toast, and would sit on her scratchy 70s shag couch. And she would give me the newspaper, the business section, while she was reading the newspaper every morning. And she would say, I don't understand any of this, anak, because anak in Filipino means child. So she called me
mhm,
anak. And she'd say, I don't understand any of this, anak, but I think that you're supposed to read this section.
hmm,
And so it was my grandmother who I credit with a lot, but really my love of business. And I would start to notice I would want that section more than the comics section in the
mhm,
newspaper. And then so fast forward, I realized, okay, I'm going to be a corporate lawyer. When I was asked, who do I want to be when I grow up? Of course, the troublemaker little me was, I said I wanted to be the general counsel of Coca-Cola International. And I got in trouble. Here I am in this little town, and that's my answer. My precocious little ass, it's always like saying something that nobody understood. But I was like, oh, the reason I want to be this person is because it looks like they travel a lot and they get to like represent a global brand. And this is me in fourth grade. And so that's the real story of how I became this brand strategist and futurist and someone who is insanely curious about how the world works, why people make decisions, and
mm,
in the form of commerce. Because really, I mean, obviously, Terry, you have this therapy and psychology background. Marketing, branding, strategy, it's just psychology in the form of commerce. That's all it is.
mhm,
And I started to realize that I didn't want to be a lawyer, but I did pursue a corporate career in strategy and marketing. And I started out in the ad world where I was creating ad campaigns for Coca Cola and Nestle, doing a lot of like those beverage brands. And I was in
mhm,
the San Francisco office then and realized I wanted to diversify my own like career. And so I decided since I was working in Silicon Valley that I wanted to learn more about tech and all of that. So I actually stayed in the realm of marketing, but I moved from creative to actually like go to market, which for those of you listening, what that means is any new idea that goes to market is usually run by a product management team. And so I
mm,
moved from campaigns to product management. And then fast forward, left the corporate world because I got passed up for a promotion in 2006 because I
hmm,
had brought what is today called Netflix to market and was told I was going to get this promotion, big promotion. I thought, okay, I'm going to be a CMO next, and then I'm going to be CEO of a high tech company. And while I was working my ass off, and I had two young daughters at the time, because I was trying to
mhm,
be what my mom told me I needed to be married,
mhm,
ambitious, and a good mother. I worked my ass off. And while my counterpart was playing golf with our boss every day,
mm,
I was busy working.
mm,
And he got the promotion and became my boss. And I realized at that moment, it was a big like catalyst moment for me that being compliant, being the best at what you did, being reliable and all those things were great qualities, but it's not how the world really worked. And if I wanted to open
mhm,
doors, I had to replace my highest value of ambition with autonomy instead. And I realized in that moment
mm,
that I'm going to pursue a life of autonomy, not just ambition. And so I started my own company. That was in 2006. And now at the time of this recording is 2024. And since then, I have been unemployable, but being hired by some of the biggest brands in the world, both on the corporate side and also now some of the biggest personal brands in the world. And what I enjoy the most really is mentoring and advising other ambitious women who have that going on. So I do have a mastermind, as Terry mentioned, where I help those women
Hmm.
not apologize for their ambition, for their curiosity, for having contrarian thinking,
Hmm.
getting clear on their values. And so this first book, I'm in this what I call my author era, Terry. I turned 50 last February. So this book is going to come out while I'm still 50, which was my goal at 45. I was like, my first book, I want to publish it at 50. And so it's
Hmm.
coming out a couple weeks before I turn 51. So, and this is the first book of 4 models that I teach about how to build a brand and bring an idea to market that people not just want, but will rally around. And so, as I told you, it's a long, winding yarn, but
Hmm. I
that's like,
love it though. It's all the things because really these are all the elements that make up like why we end up doing what we're doing and why for you you've become an expert at these things. So why this book? Before we get into sort of the book and who it's for, and we'll talk about leadership styles and all that, but why this book and
oh,
why now? Why Unicorn Team and why now?
this is an idea that I wanted to bring to market. This idea called Unicorn Team, right? And I was fought with a lot of friction and resistance from publishers because they wanted a book for me on messaging. They were like, "We want you to write a book on messaging." I was trying to explain this to them because I'm like, I'll sell that messaging book. That's fine. I know how to sell things. I said, but this is the book people really need, because what also people really need to know is that great ideas, including if the idea is you, meaning you want more people to know you. If you're the big idea that you want to bring to the world, you first have to know who you are, and you have to lead yourself first.
Mm,
Because once you start to understand who you are and accept that you're either leading or languishing in yourself, other people won't know that you're a unicorn that they want to hitch their unicorn magic and rare skills to. And if you think about all the great ideas that have ever happened in the world, things that we're obsessed with, brands we're obsessed with, things that we would, or even we're not even obsessed, it's just like a way of life for us, whether it's the car we
sure.
drive, or most of it has come because it started with one person believing that their idea was the idea people needed and becoming the person that other people would actually get behind, whether it's the audience themselves or the
Hmm.
people working for them or with them in the early days. And I said, this is actually the secret, that we'll even call like team operations. We'll say that's an operational thing. Oh, you need a team to run the business. And I'm like, yes, you need people to run the business, but it's actually deeper than that. It's like, who is that
Hmm.
first team that you need in order to bring this idea to market? So that was the first thing. The second reason this book is because for me, that leader that you are, it's not just your business team. It's not who are the chess pieces on the block for the business.
Hmm.
It's who's your health unicorn team? Who is your relationships unicorn team? Who is your spirituality or sense of self unicorn team? Like, it all matters. And I think that for a long time, because, I grew up in the 80s and 90s around like, you know, you should compartmentalize things. And I even told my story about my mother saying, you can have it all, but you're going to have to compartmentalize things. And I realized that
Mm,
actually we need to learn to embrace integration over separation. And that, so if you say, okay, I want to bring this idea to market, I usually tell people you actually usually don't have a business problem. You have a personal problem that you're not taking care of. And it's
mm,
distracting you from the business players and processes that you need to actually like go to that next level you dream of. And so that's why this book mattered so much to be first, even though they didn't want it. I got rejected 70 times for this book. And I almost went self-publishing because I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to go to market no matter what. And at the last minute, Hay House came back around and said,
hmm.
we're listening now, because they rejected me. And that's actually not normal too, I heard. Like, once they reject you, it's over. You have to go with a new idea with them.
Usually, yeah.
But
So
yeah.
let me ask you something though, Jen. So with all of this that you were doing, what kept you going? Because being
Mm,
rejected 70 times is a lot of times.
hell
So
yeah.
what was it that kept you going? That kept you being like, I'm still going to do it, you know?
There's a model in the book called the unicorn innovation model. And what I mean by
Mm,
innovation is, a lot of people think of that as like high tech whatever. And I'm like, no, we're constantly reinventing, reimagining, and re-innovating ourselves.
Mhm.
And in the first chapter, in the first part of the model in the book, I call it this visionize step. Like you're navigating the things you want to do next. And there's this step I call visionize. And in the visionize step, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, what are your values? And I know a lot of people talk about values and why values are so important, but I have another take on values. When I
Mhm.
mentioned how I got passed up for that promotion in 2006 from my boss, and I realized that I needed to change. If I wanted to have the life I dreamed of, I need to live a life of values that are real and meaningful, that they're not just words, that the tongue in my mouth match the tongue in my shoe. And if my
Mhm.
tongue and my shoe weren't like in the right direction, I was only letting myself down. And so I started to realize because Terry, I look at life through mental models. Like I do everything through mental models because it helps me kind of structure things in a way that my crazy thoughts can get a little bit organized. And so I started thinking about my values and I said, what are my values? My values aren't just this future version of me that I want.
Mhm.
They are really like the future me, the present me, and the past me. And the
Mhm.
future me, again, is the vision. And then I realized the present me that craved more, craved different, craved even changing the generational story of my own life,
Yep.
that I needed to look at why I craved things at all. And I realized, and I just started saying, what are the voids in my life? So future me is like the vision. Present me was like, there are voids. And I think, or I'm perceiving there are voids. There's things that are missing. And we know in
Mhm.
business, if you can fix what's missing, you'll make money in general, right? So I started to go,
Right.
oh, voids. Okay. And then the last part was the past me, like, which I started to go, what has happened to me that has let me down, disappointed me, made me stop doing things? And I realized those were violations. And I put this little formula together. It's like, oh, my values are actually my vision, my voids, and my violations. And if I just honor that instead of going, oh, it's because of what happened to my past, that's what's gotten in the way. Or, oh my gosh, my future is too forward thinking, I'm never going to have that. I started to go, oh, there's so
Mhm.
much value in getting clear what my vision, voids, and violations are. And so to answer your question, it's a formula that I use to stay motivated, even when I encounter friction, pressure, noise, and assholes, basically.
Mm.
Like, it's
Yeah.
like, I started to realize, like, oh, how can I face rejection? Rejection sucks. It didn't feel good. In fact, this book itself, this first book, has shaken my confidence more than any pursuit of anything else. Like, and I hear this from a lot of authors, people who have what
Mhm.
I call day jobs like us, like, if you will, like, serving people, having businesses. But
Sure.
authorship was like, wow, like it really rocked me and rocked my values because I was like, autonomy being my highest value. I have no control over
Mhm.
this thing when I'm working with a publisher. They've got their ideas, I've got mine, and ultimately they have the final say in a lot of ways when you go traditional pub.
Mhm.
And so how I dealt with it was just, first of all, having the right unicorn team through it, I guess is how I'd answer it, is I
Mhm.
hired even a new therapist who was, I felt like, specifically suited. Like nobody knew her. She's down the street from me. And I have a
Mhm.
bunch of like health wellness practitioners for my mental health, spiritual wealth, physical health, et cetera. But I was like, during this time when I'm getting all this rejection, I need somebody to just help me process my shit around this book. Just being somebody who would listen. Because I needed also somebody to be sad and angry about it with, because I felt so misunderstood, not seen.
Mhm.
I can even get emotional about it right now. It was so tender. Like I felt so tender with it because it felt like a
Mhm.
baby. Like, it's like,
Yes.
you're saying my baby's ugly. You don't want my baby. And
Yep.
this is the book people need right now. And this is the book I want people to read right now. And so that was the first thing, is I got the right therapist and she's still my therapist, but I got a second one. She was my second one, really, just for this book. Like I really wanted somebody to
Mhm.
be with me through that. Frankly, at the time, I was really experiencing the perimenopausal symptoms. Like I started feeling it around 42, but man, 3
Mhm.
years ago when this whole book started, I
Mm.
was like, okay, body, come for me. I don't recognize you. What is all this? And it
Mhm.
was pissing me off, frankly, because I felt like so hazy. I felt like I was getting early onset dementia. I'm not even joking. I was
Hmm.
like, so I started getting serious about who's my new health team because I had this health team, but even the
Hmm.
way I could like move my body, strength training, all these other things that I need to do more of, I need to go find new unicorns to help me with the body I was in now instead of being in resistance. And I was mentally, I was like, man, I don't want to change this. I like this. Don't get me wrong, I was fighting it tooth and nail, but really, my book is a guide for me to make these decisions. It's like, oh,
Right.
I want this new idea, which is a book. I need different unicorns on my team now that'll help me get through that friction and the turbulence.
So these are real life examples of
Hmm.
unicorn teams. So
Yes.
so tell us a little bit more about that.
On the surface, again, this is a business book that helps you get your next big idea out to the world. But what I always say is like your next big idea could be not just say your personal brand, but it could be, you know what? My husband and I, we want to go live in 4 continents a year. That could be a new idea that you want to do for your life, but you don't know how to do it. So this book gives
Hmm.
you a structure to basically be able to do that, really identify the trade-offs and the benefits that you're going to have to either let go of stuff, maybe even let go of people, right? Even like if you want to have a nomadic business,
Hmm.
sometimes you're going to let go of some of your current team members who are
Hmm.
currently serving you. And so this book gives you a model to not just make those decisions, but to understand why you're making them so that you're not just
Hmm.
making them based on intuition. There's a mix of intuition, intellect, and instinct that we can all use. And the model helps you honor all three of those things. And I think, especially now, we need more intellect more than ever because the brain has gotten a bad rap the past 10 years in terms of like, oh, don't think with your brain. And I'm like, actually, the brain is a very helpful tool. And that's why I use the model is kind of a brain model. It's kind of
Hmm.
like, oh, it's a mental model. Here's kind of the logic, but it's
Right.
also covers the natural instincts and the intuition that you have and the actual steps. Like there's all these categories of how to bring an idea to market, who you need. And I cover both the business people, but also the people, like the personal
Right.
people.
Because really, one of the key concepts in the book basically is the 9 unicorn leadership types. So, is it important that people know their type? And will they know their type from reading this book?
Yes, because I talked about the visionize step, right? So there are 3 energies in great ideas. And there are a lot of books, Terry, right, on productivity, on time management. And yes, time is important. But even going back to the question you asked me about what made you get through the rejection, you can have all the time in the world, but if you don't have energy inside of the time you have, there's no way
Mm,
you're going to push through. And so this book focuses on those 3 types of energies, which is visionize, strategize, and mobilize. These are 3 different energies. And there are 3 types of roles. So there's a visionizer, a strategizer, and a mobilizer role. And these
mm,
3 roles at any given point, based on your idea, you need other people who have different types of energy categories. And so there's 9. So there's kind of like the 3 V's. So VS, VM, VV, and then the S's is SS, SM, SV, and then the M's are MV, MS, MM. So these are the 9 steps. And I actually have this amazing, juicy assessment that I've been doing in an analog way for so many years. And we've turned it into a diagnostic that helps you really tap into what is the energetic makeup that gets me excited and helps me move through harder things. And so, for example, I'm an SV. So I'm a strategizing visionizer. And what that means is strategy is my top energetic strength. Like when I'm doing strategy, I have limitless energy. So meaning
mm,
even if let's say I'm working with a client or I'm working on my own idea, if I'm in the strategy part of it, I am limitless. I'm like a nuclear reactor, right?
mhm,
Um, and that powers my vision. So that I'm a V second. So I'm always V second. So if the strategy does not give me the V that I want, I don't want to do it.
mhm,
And therefore, I don't work on things or I don't participate on teams where I feel like that part is complementary or needed in whatever
Mm-hmm.
the project is. Now, I like to use a personal example because I'm married. My husband is an MV. And so he's a mobilizing visionizer. And so he finds satisfaction and energy from doing an accomplishment. Strategizers love results. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
if I don't feel like I can get a result, I'm like, no thanks, don't want to work on it. Right. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
big on architecting a result. And visionizers, all they care about is their ideas. My husband being an MV, and I actually tell people all the time, I use the unicorn team model to pick my husband. Like he's my second husband. And I'm like, I need an energetic counterpart that can deal with
Mm.
this. So whoever's listening, you can really use it for anything. It's very
Yeah.
cool. But you can also make a ton of money with it because you're going to pick the right ideas because we always have infinite ideas, right? So I'm like, pick the right
Mm.
ideas and then know the people that will give you the energy to be able to get it to bring it to life. I'm excited because in the book, you can access your type and really know how to then use the model in align with your type. You can hire the right people with your type.
Right.
You can even again, whether it's your next virtual assistant or it's your next personal trainer, or it's like it works for all of it. That's what's so juicy. And because I'm a strategizer, that's just how I think. Like this is like
Right.
you have access now to my crazy brain and how I architect results at a very high percentage. So yeah.
So for people listening or for just everyone out there, like what are some of the common mistakes that people make when they are trying to build an effective team? Because I've had a lot of clients and a lot of women in my mastermind having difficulty pulling together the team that they want or not being able to figure out, is this the right person? Should I hire them?
Team is hard. People are hard. Humans are going to bring friction to you, bottom line,
Mm.
right? What we have to first accept is, this word visionary. I hate that word. That's why I call it visionizer because izer means action, right? And a visionizer is willing to say, I'm not the only important unicorn in the stable, right?
Mhm.
Because when you look at the people we admire and the ideas that we've gotten, yes, the vision, the founder, the ideas person is critical, but without strategy and mobilization, nothing happens. And so the first
Right.
thing I tell people is number one, like just know that anybody you hire for this season may not be the right one or for future seasons. Like first
Right.
there's seasons for an idea to come to life. And so in your first season, you may not have the same people, and that's okay. And sometimes we
Hmm.
hold on too long to people who are not supposed to come with us. I mean, Terry, I know you talked about this actually in the mastermind. You spoke my mastermind when you spoke about it. We were talking about like you have to be the leader to the team. You have to be willing to say, this is what we're doing, and you have to cast that vision, but you also
Hmm.
have to be not repelling structure because a lot of times people are like, oh, if you're a visionary, you just should be creative. And I'm like, I don't agree with that. If you want your ideas to work and you want to make real money and real impact,
Hmm.
you have to be a grown ass person
Right.
and accept the fact that structure actually creates freedom too. And that
Hmm.
just because you are a high vision person, that can't be an excuse for having important or difficult conversations. It can't be an
Hmm.
excuse for really committing to a structure that is fluid and flexible with your team, but you're not
Hmm.
exempt from it. Because a lot of times we go, well, I'm the boss, so I'm exempt. I would say that as a boss, we can get away with it a lot more than obviously the rest of the team. But when your team feels like the values you speak of don't meet the way you lead the team, they'll go
Yeah.
find something else. We live in a world now where an 18-year-old doesn't have to go to college to be a millionaire even. They can start a YouTube
Hmm.
channel and do whatever the hell they want. But the truth
Yeah.
is, people want to work with other people. That's the other thing. Like we're thinking, oh God, it's so hard to find good help, especially if you're an entrepreneur. Like,
Hmm.
we are the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, the janitor, and the CEO, and we have to pay all
Right.
the bills and we've got all to lose. And so I really empathize with that because I'm you too. But those are the things that are the most difficult are the things that actually need the most tending. And so what I tell men, women, it doesn't matter what gender you are, but especially women, I think we get so like we want to nurture, we want to fix, we want
Hmm.
to save. And why I like having a model is at least you can point to a model too and not blame the model, but go, we're all committing to this thing together. So
It's just like having policies, Jen, where
yeah,
I love to say, it's not personal, it's just a policy.
there. I love it. It's so clean. I love making clean, giving clean direction and making clean decisions. This book helps you make those clean decisions and deal with conflict. Maybe there's a chapter on conflict, how to have a hard conversation with a team member that's not working out, or that you have to, let's say, release them because they're not going with you to the next place you're going. So there's
Right.
even a model in the book, a whole chapter about how to have those conversations so that you're not holding on for too long.
This was so great, so interesting. You guys, the book is called Unicorn Team, the 9 leadership types you need to launch your big ideas with speed and success. And I really feel like this is not just for entrepreneurs and business owners, because the truth is we all need unicorn teams in our lives for them to run smoothly as well. So Jen, thank you so much for coming today. Tell us where we can find you and what you're lit up about besides your book.
Oh, well, okay. Thanks, Terry. Well, obviously, you can find me on LinkedIn or Instagram. Instagram is my favorite place to chat. Like literally, if that is me, it's not my team, because I like DMing and doing that. But LinkedIn is where, if you ever want more depth, case studies that I do on different ways to look at unicorn team or messaging, go follow me on LinkedIn, and you can find me at jenniferkem.com.
Excellent. And the book is out now. It's been out for almost 2 weeks. You guys can buy it anywhere fine books are sold. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Terry.